Hello and welcome back to our Weird and Proud podcast. It's Salmon.
That was sassy.
That was a sassy one. I did that in the tone that the kids call cursive, like when you're
Because it
like you all like
flows together
yeah.
in a way.
That's what the kids call
James.
Hi James, how are you?
I'm good. I learned about cursive singing today.
I know. Literally, there's so much to teach you when it comes to TikTok. But we have things to talk about today.
Big lots to do today.
Big and lots. Big and lots.
We got to shove a lot in your gapes today.
We got
your
to open
ear
your
gapes.
gape holes.
Open your ear gapes.
Open all your gapes. While you're at it, might as well open them all. Because we have one of my favorite topics. This has been on my list, and I've been waiting to chat about this topic forever. And it's the disappearance of Malaysian Airlines 370.
I'm excited to hear about you were very excited when you brought this up.
This is one of those cases that, if I die, when I, pass the Rainbow Bridge, I think they only say that about pets. But when I think I'll be on the Rainbow Bridge. That's a saying that they say about when a pet passes, they're like, "Did you pass the Rainbow Bridge?"
Are you standing on a rainbow bridge right now?
Kind of.
Did you take some mushrooms before this episode?
Yeah, I should.
We have a mushroom episode, a microdose episode.
We should.
We each go on something
Wait,
different.
would you guys want to listen to that or watch that?
That'll be the special bonus episode.
Wait, that's actually not a horrible idea. Yeah, maybe we do that as like a bonus episode.
Okay,
something to think about. But I will want to know, basically what I was saying is, like, when I die, I want to know what happened to this airline. That's going to be like the first question I ask, because it's still unsolved, which sometimes, I'm iffy about, because I'm like, I just want a resolution. But I think that's why I'm so passionate about it. So we're going to talk about the disappearance of an airplane that is one of the, I think they labeled it as the biggest, death of passengers, of non-military passengers in the history, and the most expensive search in the history of the airplane life.
Wow.
And then James is going to talk about the Bermuda Triangle.
Science Corner, spoiler alert.
So we're just going to talk about all the creepy things in the planes and in the seas.
Because they're both weird. Like the Bermuda Triangle,
weird, and they're kind of related to some degree.
Very weird.
Kind of, sort of related. But before we jump in, quickly reminder, and this, we're getting to the end of our little spring summer tour. We have one show left in Boston this Friday. So if you're listening to this, in a timely manner, this Friday, it's technically in Foxborough. It's actually right next to Gillette. So I think we mentioned this last time that I'm basically Taylor, and yeah, tickets are available at SamanthaRamsell.com/events.
Come and visit us.
Come see us. And we can't wait, because we love Boston area, even though it's not like we're going to have much time. But hopefully we might take the day Saturday.
We might.
And go.
We might stay up extra.
Or
I have not been to the Union Oyster House in a while. And that is like my favorite place to frequently go to Boston.
I know. So get your ticks. We can't wait to see you. And then hopefully some more cities coming this fall, doing maybe another Midwest tour.
Boston also has that badass cigar lounge that's in the basement.
Yes. Oh my God, they do. That's pretty.
Whatever the heck the name of it's like.
Yeah, I forget.
It's like SC something. It's
like,
not Scalzi, because it's Scalzi Park in Stamford, but it's something crazy like that.
Yeah. They do.
So if you are around Boston for her show, you need to look up this cigar bar if you like cigars.
Yeah, it's in the Little Italy.
It's literally
area.
Like a classic
Smokers
smokers lounge with sports on TV and serving
a side
whiskey
of lung cancer.
Yeah, a whole bunch of lung cancer.
And a whole bunch of lung cancer. So can't wait to see you. More dates coming soon. But James, anything you want to say before we dive in?
No,
you are
I can't
wearing
stop thinking about this cigar.
shorts
I'm wearing swim trunks
with a dog surfing
summer.
on them. It's summer. We were gonna go to the beach today, but
I was told there was a beach involved, so I was prepared.
It's always good to have swimsuits on, because you never know. We'll get in water gun fights with the neighbors. They come out of nowhere.
Oh my God, that was so wild and fun yesterday.
Yeah.
If you didn't see Sam's stories.
Yeah, if you haven't been keeping up to date with our neighbor riffraff kids, we're always like, last year we did the same thing too,
Yeah.
where we have little water gun fights every now and then. And we showed them who was boss yesterday. I felt really proud of us.
We did well. We teamed up. I kind of dove into the bushes with the hose
Yep.
and got them. But the wildest part of that story was when we heard the mom yelling at them.
Yeah.
And it was kind of odd because after the fact, we had a couple of Aperol spritzes. We
Beveraginos.
had some Aperol spritzes out on the back deck, or as we call it, the Oasis.
Yep.
And we probably didn't pay attention to some of the kids were like dressed in outdoor kids' clothes. You know, your parents put you in clothes that you know are going to get dirty.
Yeah.
But then some kids started coming
Have
out there like all
dresses.
dressed up in dresses. And I don't think we put two and two together. We were just so passionate about the water fight.
Passionate about the water fight.
And then we heard a mom yelling at the kids.
I know.
And I walked over and I apologized for us.
Sorry, they're
because
soaking
they
wet.
were
That
supposed
was
to
our
be
fault.
somewhere.
Yeah, so we taught the kids a lesson basically, and then they got taught another lesson by their parents.
Oh boy, did I feel bad on that
Yeah,
one. But it was worth it.
It was worth it, and we all had fun. We made core memories for them. All right, but let's get into it, okay? Because
Are we transitioning?
we're transitioning, you guys. This is the official transition into one of the greatest mysteries of all time. In my opinion, humble opinion,
you're allowed to have that opinion.
one of the greatest mysteries. And there was a Netflix documentary that came out on this, I think like a couple years ago, like 2020, 2021. So if you want some more information, there's also a lot on YouTube, but there has been like some information that's come out recently that has changed the opinions of some people. So if you haven't heard of this, I'm gonna again set the scene. Okay, it's March 2014, and this started. It was in Malaysia originally, is where the aircraft was going to depart from. It was a normal routine operating flight that goes from Malaysia to China, to Beijing. So again, this is like a huge aircraft. It's a Boeing 770, and there's 227 passengers on board, and then there's about like 12 flight crew. So there's a lot of people on board.
Okay.
So it starts out normal flight. Everything's normal. There's two pilots. Obviously, there's like a primary and a secondary, and everything's totally normal from the get-go. They leave at like midnight. This flight is also like in the middle of the night. Not that that really matters, but just so you know. So they're leaving like midnight. They take off, and again, everything's totally normal until about like an hour into the flight. It was about like actually more like 40 minutes into the flight. They were over the South China Sea at this point, and pretty much like, again, I know James is gonna like make fun of me for this, but the geography part of it does really help to like kind of understand the flight pattern, because Malaysia is below China.
Correct.
So it's basically like they just had to go straight shot north pretty much to Beijing. Like it was a pretty easy flight, like straight up, straight north. But about, again, like 40 minutes in after takeoff, they had basically a transitionary, like when you're going into different airspaces, they were leaving the Malaysia airspace at this point. And the last verbal communication that they have is the pilot saying to the Malaysia, the air traffic control, kind of doing their checks on everything and saying everything's good. And then he says, "Good night, Malaysia 370." And that was the last thing he said, was "Good night, Malaysia 370." And that was the last they would verbally hear from anyone on board this aircraft. Okay. And then just about, an hour later, so about 15, 20 minutes later, they noticed that their air traffic surveillance radar was turned off. And it has to be manually shut off. Like, it's not like something that it's like, could have been shut off by accident or a mechanical error. It's like a manual thing that only a trained pilot would really know how to do that. So of course, like they're starting to freak out, but it's also like, again, in this transitionary period where they're going into Thailand airspace. So Malaysia really wasn't looking into it. Like they were like, all right, they're kind of off our radar. And so no one really like saw anything until about an hour later. And then they noticed, like, when they should have been crossing into Thailand airspace, They're like, where the heck is this plane? But they see this bleep on a radar, but it's not like coming across as that aircraft. Like they can see there's like a, something in the air. So this causes a lot of confusion. They're going back and forth between, Thailand's trying to call and figure out where this plane is. And they're like, where the hell is this plane? So they're all kind of scurrying around trying to figure it out. When they're like, all right, let's call the military. And the military can still see them on their, like, they call it like the primary radar tracking system. And they can track them for about like another hour or so. So a couple hours they're flying.
And the military was pretty certain it was them.
Yes. And the military was, it had to have been them. There was no one else that could have been in that airspace. And right about this time when the secondary was shut off, the primary was shut off, which is what the military can track, they take a huge U-turn. The flight takes a huge U-turn. So when again, it should just be going north to Beijing, all of a sudden it almost turns 360 degrees and starts going back.
180 degrees?
Yes. Well, 360 because it's almost kind of like they're coming backwards.
Okay.
Or 100, whatever, James.
360 is a circle. They'd be going
sure,
the same direction.
Sure, whatever. 180, okay, James. So now they have no way of tracking them. So really, the only reason they know the rest of the flight path is because, like, almost a day later, Boeing was like, "Oh, we have this communication system that checks in with maintenance every hour on the planes." So they can kind of check and saw, okay, the plane was still flying for another 6 hours and someone was manually flying it. So they knew it was going for another 6 hours in the sky. They also, just because of like cell phone towers and also other satellites, they could kind of put together, and this is about a day later when they're trying to find all these pinging locations, they can find that it does take this U-turn, head south. And it's really over like the Andaman Sea, which is in like by the Indian Ocean.
By Indian Ocean.
Yeah, I'm just making sure. I'm checking with James every so on, make sure I have my geography. And then over the Indian Sea, pretty far south, it just disappears. It's gone off the radar. There's no more word from them. There's nothing. So obviously they're sending out ships. They're sending out, helicopters. Everyone's on board. They start getting the U.S. involved. And now it's like the early morning, of that day. So now it's like 6, 7 a.m.
Got it.
And of course, too, at that time, like 7 a.m., everyone in Beijing is like, where is this flight? Like, of course, everyone who's been waiting on these poor people are like, where?
And you said it's hundreds of people.
227 plus the crew.
Just awful.
So, and the communication, if you go into the documentary and really get into, we could make this like an hour long just on this, but the communication was really weird with the Malaysian airport. It took them at the Malaysian airport, the Malaysian government took them forever to make the announcement about what was going on. They didn't even make the announcement until like noon, 1 o'clock that something happened with the plane. So people are like, where are, my loved ones who are on this flight? So, there's a lot of criticism against the Malaysian government about how they handle it, the military, on how they handle this, which will come into play when we talked about the conspiracy theories. But they basically, all they know at this point when it comes to the exact flight is that it heads south, it disappears over the Indian Ocean. There was, again, no other communication. They were on like a backup military radar that can, has the ability to track these planes. Other than that, that's literally all that happened. Like, it's kind of like a story about, people trying to put together pieces from literally and figuratively from like the biggest like body of water, of geography you could ever fall into. Like, people, are like, oh, why, it's crazy that they never found the plane itself. But the Indian Ocean is the third largest ocean
It's
in the
connected
world.
right to the Pacific. So it's,
right.
all the oceans are connected.
Yeah.
Anyway, so.
And it is literally, talk about a needle in a haystack about trying to find a plane.
Yeah, it's even probably smaller than that, honestly.
Yeah. And it wasn't until, probably like a year and a half later that they started finding pieces from the plane. So a lot of them were found over the east coast of Africa, which again, if you're looking at the map, that would mean that a lot of them would have to, if the Indian Ocean,
Kenya.
right? It was like Madagascar,
Tanzania.
Tanzania. My God. And parts of South Africa, they start finding debris from the plane, from like
Okay,
the
so they
wing.
did find some parts for
So
it.
they did. Only like they found over 26 pieces of debris that people think are the plane, but they can only really confirm that 3 of them were.
Okay.
Um and yeah, they after that they never found, to that day they've never found anything else.
I mean, I can already answer this question for you.
What?
You said it. It's a Boeing flight.
Well, it's a Boeing. Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. But here are the conspiracies, and here's what it gets a little wild. So, of course, the first one I'll talk about the 2 that are most probable, and a lot of people say the Occam's razor theories. Because it is hard.
Love
Like
the
with
Occam's razor.
this, it is. There was just so much of nothing that it's like it is. They've really said up until this, even today, that they still really have no idea what happened.
Yeah, it sounds.
Like they literally are like, we still honestly have no idea.
I think my biggest question when we watched this, and still is this. So, according to your story, about a 7-hour period, they couldn't even get the pilot like on the radio.
No, they were. It was
Nothing.
completely turned off.
They could track them, but they could not talk to them
No.
whatsoever.
No.
But it has to be shut off.
It has to manually be shut by someone who knows what they're doing.
Okay.
Who's someone who's trained to do it. So here are like the 2 biggest theories that people have been talking about that are the most probable, realistic, an Occam's razor, if you will. The first one was that there was some sort of fire or mechanical issue with like the oxygen, something that provides the oxygen. So, if there was, they have like an air conditioning panel that, again, it controls the temperature and it also controls oxygen levels, because of course, if these planes aren't pressurized or provide like, I think it's more that it's just like a pressurized thing.
Yes.
That's how you lose oxygen, right? It just kind of sucks it out of the air.
Well, so
that's a
one,
science question for you.
It's a great question. So one, you're just like climbing Mount Everest, right?
Right.
You can run out of oxygen. The air is, when they say the air is thinner, it just means that there's not enough breathable oxygen.
Yeah.
Right. I think, what is our atmosphere? We breathe in about 56% nitrogen, 23% oxygen, 6% carbon dioxide.
Of course, you literally
something
know
like that. And then we breathe out a higher percentage of carbon dioxide, and we still breathe out some oxygen, which is why CPR works, right?
Yeah.
Like we don't bring it all, but when there isn't enough oxygen or a high enough percentage, our blood can't absorb it. And you can go through, I'm actually going to talk about this too in the science corner. We'll talk about, are they talking about hypoxia?
They didn't say that word.
A lot of pilots can go through it, where you get low oxygen, and you actually do start to hallucinate.
Oh, interesting.
Yep.
Okay. So that was one theory, is that something happened with the air conditioning panel that lowered the oxygen, depressurized the plane, which caused low oxygen. And they think that these people just basically suffocated, asphyxiated themselves.
Yeah.
And, there's one theory that it could happen to the whole plane, but there's also some way where it's like he had to be driving this plane manually. Like it wasn't on autopilot.
So they're certain, like there's proof beyond a reasonable doubt.
They're pretty
someone is flying the plane not on autopilot.
Yes.
Because that's the first thing I would have thought of.
Because it was making all these crazy turns too. Like it was, and we'll go into another theory about someone hijacking it.
That's weirdly enough, that's actually a reasonable explanation for this.
So, well, and that's, where it is, where it's also, the Boeing has these, the maintenance check every hour, and they didn't see anything wrong with mechanical.
Yeah, you're going to believe Boeing?
Yeah, that's true too. But they, there's this theory again, this just became like a ghost plane where, everyone had already passed away, and it was just flying, until it ran out of fuel, type of thing.
That sounds almost like the most reasonable explanation.
Right. But again, this whole thing about the autopilot, like, there was, from what they can tell, there was someone manually driving. And again, like if you looked at the flight path, and again, you can find this all online, like it was, I know you can't see what I'm doing right now if you're listening, but it was like kind of like going back and forth, and it was almost kind of like it was going one direction, go another, like it wasn't making sense.
again, somebody with hypoxia.
True. So that's the first big theory that everyone thinks. The second one that a lot of people think is that the pilot wanted to take his own life.
Okay.
And it's been done before on another pilot has done something similar.
But to take 200 people with him?
Well, that's what's so messed up. Like, apparently one guy was going through a divorce, because they're looking into everyone, of course, and
Of
doing
course.
background checks and, making sure.
With
Yeah.
that many people, you got to.
And of course, they go through
There's a lot of
everyone.
families that are owed some answers here.
Yeah. So they did all these background searches into the pilots to see, was there something wrong? Did they have any mental issues that they were struggling with? But none of them had any issues, except one of the pilots was going through a divorce.
Okay.
So, of course, some people are like, oh, maybe that was enough. But apparently, all of his other friends and family said he was doing fine. They always have mental well-being check-ins with pilots. I don't know how often, but last time they did one, he was fine. Had no other issues going on that they know of. So, of course, that's one big one is that, he depressurized the cabin, got everyone suffocate, and then he kind of, just went off and kind of flew literally off the radar, and then it ended up.
That's the amazing part is somebody flying it. Like,
Yeah.
There were no ransom demands.
No, well,
Nothing
so
like
that's
that.
the other thing we're going to get into too, is the hijacking. Also, they had noted too, a lot of the path this plane was taking was making sure that they were moving out of military bases and going like around military bases and doing it all like it was so well timed with like how, they're going into the Thailand airspace when things were starting to shut off because people weren't really watching. It's kind of
So
so they're like, oh, someone knew what they were doing with this flight path, to
that's interesting.
yeah. So then, like you were saying, did someone hijack? Well, there was never anything. There was never a ransom note. There was never any communication to anyone, anywhere. Even after, of course, the news came out, like you would think, like if it was some terrorist organization or something, they'd be like, yeah, that was us, bitches.
Yeah, they would claim
nothing.
something.
They would claim it. No one claimed it. They also, there was just no data. There was a struggle. So those are the three that most people talk about, but again, most people are leaning towards the pilot doing it because it's just with the manual pilot, manual driving of the plane, flying of the plane. It's just unless there was a hijacker that knew they was also a pilot. Like, so that was some of the other theories too, is like maybe someone got on, like, someone who was mad at the airlines who used to work for them, like somehow snuck onto the flight and took it over. But they did background checks into every single passenger on that flight, and none of them had anything sketchy.
That's where this whole potential hijacker theory continues to make more almost sense.
Right?
I'm going
But
to be
it's
the
like,
conspiracy
why
theorist.
then?
I wonder if there was also a conscious choice by the pilot to shut off the radio, or if here's the thing. It all feels like something's being not conspiracy theory, but somebody's not saying something to protect their own butt, right?
Yeah.
I would think that there's more information out there.
Right. Well, you would think.
But the other side of it is if somebody did hijack it, what if, like, action movies aside, what if somebody hijacked it to get into different airspace and then they just jumped out of the plane themselves and left the
That would
plane
be,
go
but how would they jump out?
with a parachute out the back?
I don't know.
Now I'm the one being the
No,
conspiracy
you're the crazy
theorist.
one.
But it's that theory, because somebody was controlling the plane. But if somebody's controlling the person controlling the plane,
right.
or a la 9/11, somebody who knew how to fly a little bit, like you said, a former employee or something, maybe they were trying to hold, maybe the airline or the government of Malaysia didn't say anything because they didn't want to. There's something more with it, right?
Yeah. Well, now you're getting the crazier conspiracy theories, which is that the Malaysian government was in on it. There was a lot going on at the time with China and Russia. And, maybe they wanted to put something into the news to distract people from what was going on politically.
I think that they didn't know what happened, or something happened that they didn't want people to know, and
Yeah.
that's where they weren't involved in the plane becoming missing, but they know something that happened on that plane.
Yeah.
Somebody knows
Yeah.
something that
Something knows
happened.
someone. And, of course, like I had put out like a little questionnaire to people being like, what do you think happened?
What do people
And
say?
well, a lot of people think it was the pilot. A lot of people, kind of the ones we've talked about, but other ones too, going around the whole political conspiracy that they're being held in Russia somewhere,
Oh, they go
that they're
real
still
far.
alive.
Oh, wow.
Like, there's some islands down there that they're like, there's this conspiracy that came out. This guy thought he had found more parts of the plane, but it was never confirmed. And he saw like found some other bottles and like what looked like people had tried to make like a house on the island.
Oh, really?
So he was like, maybe some people survived and lived out here for a little bit, type of thing. Some people also say aliens, of
Of
course.
course.
And then, of course, some people say maybe they flew far enough to go into the Bermuda Triangle.
I mean, they're not anywhere near 6 hours from
No,
the
they're
Bermuda
literally,
Triangle.
yeah, no way. Which is
There's
like where some of them, it's like obviously people are just
Now you're just
having,
throwing crap
yeah,
that
yeah,
doesn't make any sense.
yeah, 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 yeah. But it's just one of those cases that it is. I mean, even if it was like it's just, if this guy was going to take his own life, like the idea of doing it with a plane full of innocent people, a lot of them, again, we're just going on for business, like a lot of businessmen, a lot of families on vacation. There was like 8 kids or something too on the plane.
Oh,
It's just like it's so sad. Either way, it's so sad. I mean, and again, like being the family, like I just can't imagine that you're, it's like, where's the plane? And some people said too, there was a show that came out called Manifest,
yes. And
that this
where they
plane went missing
time travel, they would
and
hit
they
like a wormhole.
right, and then they came back, like a year, or so later, and in their mind, or no, I think it was even for longer than
Just
that. It was
longer than
like,
that.
yeah, it was like
Yeah.
10 years
Mhm.
later or something. Anyways, so there's a lot of conspiracy, but it is, I forget, it is Boeing, so who knows?
There
You
there's
know,
too much non-information
yeah, that it's easy to
that it's
theorize.
that's yeah, there is more out there on this, I believe.
Yeah,
Like I have to say something is, and then you got to think, is who benefits from information not getting out? The person who made a mistake.
yeah,
And the fact that Malaysia took a while, like who was on that plane that wasn't supposed to be? Was there an
right.
escaped convict that was on that plane? Was it as
That's
simple as that?
someone sneak on. Also, I forgot to mention too why I had talked about new evidence coming up is that apparently they were pulling up cell phone tower logs
Oh, really?
and they were going through like each person's phone, like everyone on that plane, to like see if any cell phone towers were logged. And
Okay.
apparently there was one by the co-pilot that they think was like the innocent one,
Okay.
and his phone was apparently turned on, and at one point it pinged a cell phone tower near like in the Thailand area when they were kind of making that U-turn. So they think that that means that he was turning his phone on to try and communicate with someone through his phone and be like, the other pilot's gone rogue, someone help.
Wow. Okay.
So that was new information that had come out that they're like, okay, that kind of more confirms, if he was the only person that they can find so far that had a cell phone ping,
Yeah.
because again, when you're supposed to be on a flight, you're supposed to have your phone
The
off.
hypoxia thing does make the most sense.
Yeah.
Like some form, like,
And I think they mentioned that in the documentary
yeah.
too, that
The
lack of
idea
oxygen
of
thing.
just like a huge mechanical failure, and when you don't have oxygen, anything can happen.
Yeah.
And if the pilot does go rogue, what if the other pilot passes out, and what if he just barely has enough oxygen
Try and turn on his phone.
to just either turn on his phone, but they still don't know what they're doing? Like,
Right.
I
Right.
mean, it's like being wasted. Like
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
know what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. So, anyways, that's the latest on that plane. But it is one of those things where again, until like, unless they put a submarine. That's what they should do. Send the billionaires who want to go on a submarine tour
To go find that.
to go find that. Do something resourceful
There you go.
other than just go look at the Titanic again. At least so stupid. Go and find this plane, because I think that's until like they found the plane itself.
That's a big thing. Like they need to
yeah.
find this thing.
There's just no way. And there are still apparently like groups of people, of pilots and
That are looking
military that still are looking. So you never know if it shows up
I hope
somehow,
we get
some
some
way.
answers. Yeah.
So
I hope those people get some. Those
more of the
families.
family. I know, it's just like I just can't imagine. Like, and now like that is one of those things where I feel like that's why I want to watch the maps on plane. You know how like everyone makes that joke, like,
Yes.
oh, I gotta watch the. No, I really do it because you
Like
never
watching
know.
your Uber driver. What if he goes the
Right.
wrong way?
Yeah, because that happens all the time to us. Uber drivers just doing their own thing. But another reason to be terrified to fly is your flight just might disappear. Your plane might disappear. Yay! Times. Good times.
Should we talk about more flights that have
Let's talk
disappeared?
about more flights. Yes. Okay. So that brings us to, another one of the greatest mysteries of all time. And this is also something that I was going to say that, like, we talked about a lot as kids, like same with like, if you get lit on fire, stop, drop, and roll. Like if you get caught in quicksand, like don't move.
I always thought quicksand was going to be a way bigger problem.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say all these things, and I'm like, I've never been lit on fire.
They lit on. I got caught on fire one time.
Did you stop, drop, and roll?
No, I just took my sweatshirt off.
Oh well,
I sort of patted it and put it out and took it off.
Okay.
I just smacked
yourself.
Yeah, I was weird.
You should have stopped, dropped, and roll.
Anyway, I there was so much quicksand as like in movies, and people were always getting into
and
it.
it's the same too as the Bermuda Triangle. That I feel like that was like a spooky, scary thing, and it is like, what's going on with the Bermuda Triangle?
So
James?
since you brought up what you were going to talk about, I'm like, oh, and I know you love spooky, scary. So how do I blend the science corner? And you used to go to Bermuda as a kid. We've been to Bermuda together.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the Bermuda Triangle today and some of the things that happened there. And so just to make clear what the Bermuda Triangle is, we've all kind of heard of it, but it is gigantic. We were just talking about that area.
Yeah.
Now, the area that flight went missing
is it really near Bermuda? Obviously.
Yes.
Okay.
The Bermuda Triangle, so a triangle having 3 points. The Bermuda Triangle is 3 points they talk about. It's Miami to San Juan, Puerto Rico to Bermuda. Bermuda being the furthest north.
Got it.
Right?
Okay.
That's kind of what they do, say the triangle. Now, it probably extends a little more into the Gulf of Mexico than if you really wanted to take a look at it.
Yep.
And it's about 500,000 square miles.
Yeah.
Think about that for a second.
Think about it.
Big.
I'm
and
thinking.
That area that your flight went missing in is much, much bigger.
Yeah.
Right? And so there's still a bunch of stuff that they haven't found in the Bermuda Triangle.
Sure.
We didn't start using the phrase Bermuda Triangle. It's also been called the Devil's Triangle.
Oh, spooky.
But really, I believe the phrase for Bermuda Triangle was first used in 1964 by author Vincent Gaddis.
I love all the facts.
Who kind of talked about that. Yeah.
Sure.
One of the first written examples of spooky things happening in the Bermuda Triangle happened to Christopher Columbus. Christopher Columbus actually kept he was actually a very good captain, and he kept
I would think
very
he,
detailed.
He found the world.
Very detailed notes.
Okay,
but there were people here before Christopher Columbus. That's been proven.
No,
already.
for sure.
So,
and he was like a racist and slave owner.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, keep going.
But still, it's part of history.
Yeah,
and he even talked about seeing and I'll bring these back, and that's why I wanted to make sure to talk about him. He talked about seeing different types of lights in that area that he's never seen before.
Ooh.
Right? Yep. Okay. But then also he reported that he is certain that his compass was not pointing to his compass was pointing to true north and not magnetic north. Now there's a difference between the two, and just that little bit of angle. Right. If again, picture a compass. So it's like sections of a circle, right? That creates an angle, right? So that little angle can push people off. Sure. And that's where a lot of these stories have come in. Now, one of the cool things about the Bermuda Triangle is it's not just planes that go missing. there's boats that have gone missing too, right? All right. So
Right. The
when
ghost ship. There's like some good movies about that.
oh
About that
yeah,
ghost ship.
there's all kinds of stories from the World War One and Two days of a lot of air, military pilots, military stuff going missing. One of the most
What?
famous ones that everybody brings up is in 1945. It was called Flight 19 because they
Yep.
had made the same flight 19 times. So
Huh.
this was the 19th flight.
Funny.
5 planes went missing. And why that one is kind of significant is also after those 5 planes went missing, they sent out a huge rescue squad. One
Yep.
of the rescue planes even went missing that day. Yep.
And
And another story I wanted to tell before I tie this together at the end was about Charles Lindbergh. Do you know that name?
He was a flight guy, right?
He was a flight guy. Yes. He made not the very first, but he made one of the longest transatlantic
Yeah,
flights
yeah,
from
yeah.
New York to Paris, right?
Got it.
It's actually coming up in a couple years. It's going to be the 100th anniversary of that flight.
Wow.
So,
Congrats.
and he also reported that he was flying one time from, I think it said he was leaving Havana, Cuba, and he was flying. And why this is important is because it brought so much more attention to that area
Yeah.
that he had like a cloud that kind of magnetically went around him, and he
What?
tried to go higher because normally you can go out of the cloud, but the
Yeah.
cloud followed him, and
Ghost cloud.
his instruments were going bonkers, right?
What?
So there's been some theories about is there a higher level of methane or some other gas emitted from that part of the ocean? Is it volcanic, right?
Right.
And is that
Right.
messing with the electromagnetic uh, field around the Earth, which
Okay.
can throw off some of the instruments?
Yeah.
They've never found anything to do that, right? But there's been too many accounts of instruments, of compasses going a little wonky, that this isn't a thing in that area occasionally. It's
Okay.
not the only place in the world this happens, but people talk about it a lot, right?
Yeah.
And to be honest, to rain on our parade, that seems to be the reason of the Bermuda Triangle. Is just it's getting so much time and attention over the years that people now pay more attention to when something goes missing there.
Yeah.
And really, because there's so many military bases there and just so many international flights go in and out of that area.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about Miami. We're talking about all the military bases up and down the coast
Yeah.
because
Yeah. Yeah.
Bermuda's at about the level of what, North Carolina,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
about the
Yep.
latitude of longitude
Yep.
of North Carolina. So you got to think of how many flights are happening in there, and the Panama Canal is down there, right?
Yep.
Boats and
Yep.
flights. There's just so much coming through that trade area that they did feel they solved it based on numbers. Is that there's just too many people that go in and
In
out of
that
there
concentrated area. Yeah.
Yep.
It's just high likelihood that
And
something.
that came actually from, hold on, I did look this up. That actually did come from what's called the NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration.
Wow.
That's
Fancy.
sorry, I didn't use the post on this
I was
one.
gonna say, didn't use your
No.
bibliography?
I didn't use the post, but I did use I wanted to look that up. And sorry, go ahead. What questions do you
No,
have?
I was just gonna say, you're and you feel confident. You believe this as the head of Science Corner that it's probably just like
It's
a
more to
high
do with
likelihood.
human error.
So then what? So then where are the planes? Where are the boats?
So they
Where
did
are the
start
devils?
finding a few.
Oh, they
Here's
did.
the most
Okay.
interesting piece I uncovered that's kind of from my childhood. But do you remember the story of the spacecraft, the Challenger that exploded
Yes.
with the teacher on it?
Yes.
They found a piece of the Challenger when they were looking some of these crews on
Yeah.
a show, like
Yeah.
on a reality Bermuda
Yeah.
show where they,
They're
kind
searching
of
for
like,
stuff.
yeah, well, they're searching for stuff. They found a piece of the Challenger. Yeah. Which is,
Whoa.
just outside the Bermuda Triangle. But it's still,
Crazy.
yeah. And they have found some of those old, I guess they did find one of the old unsolved mysteries. They
Yeah.
did find it down there.
Damn.
That area has such a strong Gulf Stream too, and there's so many currents, right?
Yeah.
Everything gets covered up down there really, really fast, like under the ocean. So
you're
that-
saying the devil doesn't live
what
there.
we're saying is, even though at one time people thought it was Atlantis, right? It was advanced technology from an old civilization. They thought maybe that's where the aliens that come from a water world, they thought maybe that's where aliens had landed, right? They came from their water world. They came here and found a spot, and they're just taking those ships because they don't want to be found, right? So all these crazy theories, really, it probably has more to do with sheer numbers and really unexpected weather patterns. There is a lot of weather in that area,
Yeah.
right? So those are some of the things that they feel. But there's a little science corner on the Bermuda Triangle
That's
for
so
everybody.
interesting. You know, it was funny. That was on my list too to do as like a main topic, but there just is, it's so more like lore.
It comes down to probably it is a look. There's some areas that are tougher to drive through. There's some
Right.
areas that are you just can't get cell service. There are some areas of the world that just have something like this,
Yeah.
and we put a triangle to it, and there's a lot of great stories behind it. And just like you said before, you want to know on your deathbed what happened to this flight.
Yeah.
Our brain is constantly searching for answers for things.
Yeah.
And sometimes the easy answers make no sense, like it's aliens or it's
Right.
the Illuminati or it's this, right? When really it usually comes down to something that was probably more basic.
I hate when you make things basic.
Yeah,
We can't
I know.
just say the Illuminati did
Although
it.
it's really interesting to look at.
It's one of those things that, of course, whenever, my dad loves Bermuda. So we've done a couple family trips there, and it's just so easy to get to where we live. And that was always, like the Bermuda Triangle, like always scary flying
I'm
over it.
definitely
Like,
discussing with Lee Ramsdell. We're going to talk about True North versus because your dad's he's a licensed captain now.
Yeah.
I know he studied that. So like,
Yeah.
what happens? So what happens when
Yeah.
your compass goes
Well,
crazy?
and
What
I
do you
think my
do?
dad had said he used to sail a lot too. When he was like in college, but they had gone down to Bermuda. Like, I wonder, like, if he's
We got to ask him about it. Yeah.
Spooky.
We'll do a follow up after a Lee Ramsdell interview.
Yeah, we should interview my dad when we go up. That would be funny. He's a little rascal. That was gorgeous, James. Thank you so much for that, because honestly, that is something that I have always wondered about. And I feel like that's a good example of something that you can just take my fantasies and squash
Just
them.
crush them.
Yeah.
That was enjoyable.
But I still just love the idea of there being a triangle that's haunted by the devil and aliens and the Illuminati.
You can have that triangle.
Okay.
You can keep it.
I can keep it? Okay.
We'll give you some hypoxia.
Yeah. Just choke me. Choke me out. All right. I think it's that time, James.
Oh, my favorite time.
Secret, 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 secret.
That was very cursive-y.
Right? I know. The kids would love it. It is time for secrets, where you guys call in, leave us an anonymous voicemail with your weird secret, something weird you've done, something weird you do, something you've never told anyone. It could be, we always throw out some random topics, but we've got some great ones this week. We've got a mix. I've tried to keep it a little mixed up because, of course, we've gotten some great sleepwalking, weird things that happen in people's sleep.
Oh, perfect.
So we do got a couple of those. We've got a gynecology visit, and we've got another weird fear.
Ooh, I like the weird fear ones.
Yeah,
they're
I
interesting.
was like, because all right, James. Oh, wait, first, if you want to call in and tell us your weird secret, you can call in too.
SpeakPipe.
That's speakpipe.com/weirdandproudpod. I'll put it in the description of this podcast or video as well. All right, James, are you ready for the first one?
Prepared.
Here we go.
Hey, Sam. James. I don't know if this is considered weird, but my husband would definitely consider it to be weird. Sometimes in the middle of the night, like a couple times a month, I'd say, I wake up and I just sit bolt upright and start screaming loud. And obviously this wakes him up. And then he wakes me up and he's completely freaked out, but I'm completely fine and not bothered and go right back to sleep. And I was just wondering if this happens to anybody else or if I'm actually a true psychopath. And I feel like it correlates with sometimes when I have this dream, I'm in this specific place, but it's like a dream that I feel like I try to go to. So I don't know. I think, all right, maybe something's wrong with me. I don't know. Does this happen to anyone else? I have to know. All right. Thanks. Bye.
Crazy.
I mean, she summed it up at the beginning. I don't know if this is weird, but I wanted to share. Like, if you don't think something's weird, it probably is.
Yeah.
Because that is definitely, you are not a psychopath. You seem very nice. That is definitely weird.
Yeah.
That one definitely counts.
Yeah, sitting up and screaming, like, I know you had said, I think it has to do with like a dream that I have, but you like the dream. So it's not like it's like a nightmare or like you're having night terrors. It sounds like, like I feel like if you're getting up and screaming, how I'm envisioning, like it would have to be something that really scared you. So like, yeah, like if it happens a couple of times a month?
And that's the other part. It doesn't happen like once every couple years. It
Yeah.
literally is that frequent. That's weird.
Yeah.
The part that gets it for me is the sitting straight up first.
Right.
That like even if she
Right.
didn't
That is
scream,
like out of a horror movie.
even if a couple times a month, like you just all of a sudden sat up in bed and were like sitting there sleeping, that would be weird. Yeah, that would be strange.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like you know, if it's not like a sleep terror thing, like is it, again, and this happens with a lot with people, like if you're drinking.
Yep.
Or, you took some sort of medication or something. But again,
Yeah.
it's with happening so frequently.
It's up to you if you want to share those things, but that's a good point. You bring up a good one.
Or yeah, if you're having a rough time sleeping otherwise, if like these are the nights that you get really good sleep. It is, I mean, if it's, I'm sure it's it might be bugging your partner more than you, especially if you're not noticing it, but it is crazy to think that like you can do that and scream and not wake yourself up.
Yeah.
But
Still, the
it wakes
sitting
you up.
straight up gets me.
I know. Let us know if you find out anything more.
Do you have a few glasses of wine with dinner
Right,
or something? Like,
right.
Are there times you've done that, or does this really just happen out of the blue?
Yeah. I'm so curious. That would be kind of scary if you just got up and started screaming. It would freak the shit out of me. Freak the shit. But that's a gorgeous. And let us know if there's anyone else out there. Do you get up and scream in the middle of the night? What things have you done?
I think there's more screamers than I would guess. There's more people that do scream or yell or make a loud sound than there are people that sit straight up.
Yeah, going around, walking around.
That's why the sitting straight up to me is really intriguing.
Yeah. All right, James, are you ready for the next one?
Prepared.
Here we go.
Hey, Sam and James. I have a bizarre story about a visit to a gynecologist. Went to the gynecologist. It so happened to be a man. I had never had a male gynecologist before, but I was like, well, I mean, let's just see what happens. Like, I didn't, you're a doctor, you're a professional. I don't see any harm in it, right? He was very professional at first. He just seemed pretty like low key also. Like if a professional doctor and a skater guy were to morph, this was that guy, and he made me feel very comfortable. That is until I laid back on the chair as he was about to do the examination. I had my, each of my legs in the stirrup and everything like that. Like I was exposed, like everything was happening. And right as he inserted his fingers, he said to me these exact words: "Well, this is awkward." And like, I can't even say this with a straight face. Because it was like one of those situations I'm actually scarred for life. I was just like, what are you talking about? And he like left the exam room. It was fucking weird. The nurse finished the exam on me.
So it gets cut off at that point, but she does call back and leaves another voice, a part 2, and it just says that she did end up like filing a complaint to the hospital and being like, that was so weird. Like, I didn't know if that meant like something was wrong or like what was wrong.
Happened?
Yeah. And nothing happened. Like nothing happened to him. She like looked up his credentials. Like, yeah, he'd been practicing for a couple years and nothing ended up happening. But now she's like, I'm scarred for life. That is like the weirdest thing I feel like a gynecologist could say. I was like on bated breath waiting to see what you were going to say because you do talk a little slow, but I kind of like the suspense build up. But when you said, well, this is awkward, like that is so, I did not expect to say that. Like, I didn't know what he was going to say, but that's weird.
I've never been to a gynecologist, but nothing even remotely close to that. But as an athletic trainer, there were times where I had to like wrap or tape hips on some of the girls, right? And it would have to be under shorts. So they'd have to go down to their underwear.
Yeah.
And yeah, you just have to, you can't say anything. You just do your dang job. You don't say a phrase that
this is awkward.
You can't say anything that's even gonna. And I had a female instructor, the head athletic trainer, was teaching me to do this stuff. She's like, look, some of the girls, there was another guy in there, to be honest, that some of the girls weren't comfortable with. But I was like very professional and never, right, all that stuff. And they were like, they want you to, like, they like the way that I tape. Like I was pretty good at what I did. And you did have, like, they trained you. They were like, you like say nothing. Say less. Just like no conversation. Just go at it. And
especially when you're doing something like that.
Yes. And before you say anything, you let the girl get like fully clothed, and then you say, hey, I noticed how tight your hip might be. You have a risk of you're at a risk of a hamstring injury. Like it's professional still. Like that was the sort
you're
of thing
you
looked
at
at.
Mid.
No, you're not like her pants are down and I'm trying to rap and just be as not
as professional.
Yeah, as professional, and then say something in the middle of it.
Right. Well, I know that would be the same. I know you never go to the doctor ever. No. By the way, if there's any nurses or anything out there and you want to shame James never goes to the doctor. He hasn't been to the doctor in 10 years. If anyone wants to shame him and scare him into going to the doctor, that'd be amazing. But if you were to go to the doctor and he, like, because a lot of times, sometimes they have to stick a finger up your ass. Which, how do you know if you don't have colon cancer? Like, I'm literally, if you get butt cancer, I'm gonna be pissed.
I better go for you. Just so that you're not so stressed. I will.
And I'm gonna shame you publicly.
Okay, so you just did.
That's
did. Fine.
Okay. But like if they're putting a finger up your butt and they go, well, this is awkward.
Okay, there's a better thought. Yeah.
It's like, what?
Weird when she was telling that story and you guys said that, I immediately thought of, I still remember that. I learned that stuff over 25 years ago, but I still remember it like it was yesterday. Like, just don't say anything.
Yeah.
And you're a doctor. Yeah.
Yeah, what an idiot. Yeah, that's so weird.
How uncomfortable would that be as a female?
Oh my God. Well, that's why I just refuse. I know there are plenty of people who have told me all their positive experiences with a male guy, whatever.
You've told me that before. You only go to females, right?
Yeah, I could never. Even like with anything, I try and always pick a female. Sorry, guys. Sorry. All right. Keep us posted, by the way. If anything, I don't know how long ago that happened, but I'm so sorry that happened. That's so weird.
Are doing okay? Like,
yeah. I mean, and if it's anywhere in Connecticut, not that I would ever, but like, say his name, call him out. All right, James, are you ready for the last?
Prepared.
Here's a good fear.
I have a really big phobia of vomit. Like if I vomit, if somebody else vomits, if somebody says they're not feeling well, like I start to panic, I start to sweat. If I'm at a party and I see someone getting a little too drunk, or they start to like, go in and out of like passing out, I've got to keep a watch on them until I leave, because I know what's going to happen and I want to evacuate ASAP. I do not want to be in the vicinity. I don't know if it's the smell. I don't know if it's the sound. I just hate it. Everything about it.
So I feel like, it's pretty common. I mean, it's not maybe like a fear, but just to be grossed out by vomit, of course.
I think any one of us, if any one of us got thrown up on, we would be
flip out.
Again, she wasn't saying get thrown up on, but again, it's not.
Yeah.
It's gross. Yeah.
But, to have a fear is a little bit different. Like, to be scared of it is a little bit different. And I'm wondering if, like, that's what you mean, like, you literally, like, get scared, because obviously, if someone, like, throws up anywhere near me, I need to get out of the way. But I'm not, like, scared of it. If I see it, I'm not scared. I'm just like, that's disgusting.
That's one of the things that I took from her story. Was she was telling such details of what she goes through to avoid it.
Yeah.
Like, you might...
Even someone who might be getting sick.
Yeah.
Right.
If somebody were... starting to dry heave, that would be the only time you would be alarmed. I
Yeah.
don't think like you're actively trying to avoid somebody that might
Yeah.
even have the small potential of throwing
Right.
up.
Right.
Right?
Someone who's just drunk and you're like, oh, I can't be near you if you throw up.
Now, having often cleaned up animal throw up, I wonder how she does with animal vomit.
Oh yeah, no,
That's a good
animal vomit's different.
Yeah, I wonder if for her it is or isn't.
Oh, true.
Because now the first thing I thought of when I have my brain, and I'm not saying I'm still not haven't figured out if it's right or not yet, and I kind of want to look it up. There's a lot of people that do have that major aversion to blood. Like sometimes if they even see their own blood, it isn't a fear, but they do pass out, which is kind of a fear reaction.
Yeah.
Maybe it is more of a body fluid thing for her, right?
Oh, true.
Where
could just be body fluids
and
in
she
general.
could say vomit, but that particular fluid in general makes her so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Right? Like
that just freaks you out.
Yeah. I wonder if it's a body fluid thing.
Yeah. Well, I feel like you're so much better with like bodily fluids though in general than I am.
Again, athletic trainer.
Well, yeah, athletic trainer. You grew
up.
Your dad was a doctor. You were a biology major.
Yep.
So you're like you so can see it like in a different way. I feel like I
like did a rectal swab to see what kind of bacteria was in my butt for an actual microbiology class. Yeah,
you're sick.
Well, the teacher said somebody's got to do a rectal swab, and everybody looked at me because they're like,
opened your cheeks up.
Well, I went to the bathroom, but
of course. Why am I not surprised?
Yeah, we used to dissect animals, and I could like
it's sick.
I could eat and dissect at the same time. Which is so unsafe, but
you're sick.
Yeah.
Maybe James is a serial killer, you guys.
No, I don't like that. I like people.
No, I know you don't. Yeah, you're way too nice. But it is
you do
it's nice to have if because I ever hurt my or too like you had mentioned about blood. Like if I've passed out seeing my own blood before. I cannot do blood either.
You've seen me when you or somebody else gets hurt. I'm usually always
you're the first one there. It is nice because not a lot of people can say that, and you know all the CPR.
When that lady passed out in the airport, I went to go try to help.
Yeah, James is so good about that. We were leaving
Spain.
Our last flight. Yeah, we were leaving Spain, and
you got kind of mad because you wanted to catch the plane.
I was trying to run. We had a connecting flight. And I didn't even see. And then I felt bad once I saw how badly he was hurt. But I saw this out of the corner of my eye. I mean, he was got to be in his 80s, trips, falls on the ground, and James runs over. And I'm like, James, we have a connecting flight. But then I saw he got pretty banged up. And James was in there helping him up and seeing if he needed anything. Yeah, it's nice when we have time, but if we have flights to catch.
I know. I just want to.
I'm kidding.
But it's when somebody who's a little older, if he's potentially diabetic, or there's all these other factors that something could happen.
Yeah. No, totally.
I mean, I was worried about a heart attack. Like there was a lot of things to look at.
No, so. For sure. Yeah, I'm half kidding, half not, because we did.
I could tell you were. Yeah, I could tell, but I moved it along. But
yeah. No, but that's another fear that I feel like it's valid. So if you guys have any weird fears, any weird things that's happened to you, any weird secrets you want to tell us, go to
SpeakPipe.
That's speakpipe.com/weirdandproudpod. Again, speakpipe.com/weirdandproudpod.
I got a question for the people. Has anyone ever been on a flight where the little airbags came down?
Weird flight. Tell us.
Has anyone ever been on? What are some weird travel flight stories you have? There's got to be some weird related ones.
Yeah.
Do you want any mile high clubbers out there?
Yeah. Anything weird?
Do we have any? Yeah.
Any? Yeah.
Did somebody destroy a bathroom like awful?
Yeah. Let us know. Call us in. Let us know what you thought of this episode. Did you like it? Did you not? Any questions?
You could go like it on YouTube for us.
Go like it. Go
subscribe.
Make sure you're followed and subscribed. All the things. 5-star review would be cherry on top. That would be like the tip. Like think about when everyone's putting the iPads in your face and saying, give me money. We don't even want your money. We just want a 5-star review on Apple or Spotify. Or again, just subscribe. Make sure you give a thumbs up if you're on YouTube. But we love you guys so much. We hope you're having a great week. And we'll see you next time. Bye, weirdos.
Thanks, weirdlings.
Bye.
Love you.